A man doesn't start falling apart when life gets hard. He starts falling apart the moment he learns to smile at the things he should have walked away from. You weren't destroyed by war. You weren't destroyed by poverty. You weren't even destroyed by her. You were destroyed the moment you started lowering your own standards, just to keep a woman who no longer feared losing you. Confucius once said, "The gentleman understands what is moral, the small man understands what is profitable." But modern men, they don't seem to chase either. They're not running toward virtue. They're not even running toward success. They're running toward chaos, and they call it love, just because it smells like perfume and smiles in public. But Confucius wouldn't call that love. He'd call it the beginning of a nation's collapse. Not because he was a relationship coach or because he wrote tweet-sized wisdom for the internet, but because he understood something we've forgotten: a broken home creates a broken society. And the foundation of that home often begins to crack the moment a man goes silent in the face of dysfunction. You think you've been patient, that you've been loving. No, brother, you've been afraid. Afraid to walk away. Afraid to lead. Afraid to admit the truth that's been staring you in the face. The woman you love has no discipline. And without discipline, she can't truly love you. Because love isn't indulgence. It's restraint. Restraint in service of something higher, something lasting. You were told to chase beauty. But Confucius warned, virtue is not left to stand alone. He who practices it will have neighbors. The undisciplined woman doesn't have neighbors. She has victims. She demands, but never gives. She points fingers, but never reflects. She thrives in the absence of expectations. And the longer you let her stay in that space, the more she chips away at the man you were meant to become. Her danger doesn't lie in her femininity. It lies in her freedom from consequence. It's not her body, it's her allergy to correction. It's not independence, it's her refusal to accept order. She turns every boundary into a personal attack. She hears no, and translates it into war. She confuses patience with permission. And without ever lifting a weapon, she leaves you hollow, smiling for the camera but dying inside. Confucius believed that everything noble begins with a man's heart. And everything destructive begins when that man goes quiet, when he lets the world dictate when he speaks and when he doesn't. He said, "To see what is right and not do it is lack of courage." So let me ask you something. When she yelled at you in public and you said nothing, was that love? Or was that fear? When she dressed like temptation and called it empowerment, and you swallowed your instincts, was that support? Or was that surrender? There's a type of woman every man should fear, and it's not the one who cheats. It's the one who can't be corrected. She shows up dressed in beauty, wearing her trauma like a crown. She cries on demand, but feels no real empathy. She'll make you feel like the villain for simply asking her to grow. And that's the woman Confucius feared, not because she was evil, but because she was untouchable. Untouchable by culture. Untouchable by values. Untouchable by men who still believe in peace. She's not held accountable. She's celebrated. Not responsible, free. She's not dangerous like a snake. She's dangerous like a mirror. Because when you finally look at her clearly, you'll see what you had to become just to keep her around. And that's not love. That's the slow decay of the masculine spirit. The erosion of a man doesn't roar like an earthquake. It drips, like a leaking pipe, slowly, quietly, until the lion becomes a tenant in his own kingdom. Confucius warned, he who does not investigate the foundation will have trouble with the structure. So what's the modern man building on? Temporary attraction, lust, short-term loyalty, pictures of happiness that hide 1,000 small humiliations. Men are building their lives on emotions, without checking for discipline. They build on passion, without principles. And then they cry when the whole thing falls apart. Not realizing, it was never meant to stand. You thought the woman who excited you must be the one for you. You mistook the chaos for chemistry. But here's the truth, the woman who can't control herself will eventually control you. Not with love, not with wisdom, but with fear, guilt, and exhaustion. She will drain you. And when you're empty, she'll say, "You've changed." Confucius taught that the superior man cultivates himself, not to win applause, but to grow in virtue. He doesn't speak to be heard, he speaks to preserve harmony. So, ask yourself, what has your pursuit of modern women done to your harmony? When did your home become a courtroom? When did your voice start shaking before you even opened your mouth? There is no peace with a woman who hates peace. And many of them, they're not at war with you. They're at war with silence. With calm. With standards. If a woman has no shame, she is not ready for love. Full stop. Confucius was clear, the beginning of wisdom is calling things by their proper names. Stop calling dysfunction, passion. Stop calling rebellion, confidence. Stop calling your own abandonment, compromise. The woman every man should fear isn't the one who cheats. It's the one who doesn't believe she needs to grow. She calls you insecure for having standards. Weak for having feelings. Toxic for having expectations. But listen, expectations are not oppression. They are architecture. They're what keep your mind from collapsing under emotional chaos. And if you don't set the rules, she will. And her rules are simple. She wins. Or you're the villain. That's it. There's no middle ground with a woman who believes accountability is abuse. Confucius didn't say women are the enemy. He said chaos is. And chaos has 1,000 faces. Some of them are stunning. The superior man doesn't blame her for being who she is. He blames himself for expecting peace from a storm. You can't teach a woman who's never been taught to lose. And the truth is, most men today are so starved for softness, they confuse discipline with cruelty. But real feminine discipline, that's love. The rarest kind. The kind that doesn't make excuses for bad moods. The kind that says, I'm sorry, without theatrics. The kind that doesn't want to be your queen, she just wants to protect your kingdom. Yet modern men marry queens of disorder and expect the palace to stay standing. You know what really destroys a man? It's not war, not poverty, not even heartbreak. It's the slow collapse of his own standards, the quiet decision to smile at what he should have walked away from. That's the real downfall. It's when he starts tolerating things he once swore he never would. Not because he's weak, but because he's afraid. Afraid to lose a woman who no longer fears losing him. Confucius once said, the gentleman understands what is moral. The small man understands what is profitable. But let's be honest, modern men. Many don't chase virtue. They don't chase legacy. They chase chaos, dressed up in a tight dress, smelling like perfume, and talking back like pride itself. And then they call that mess love. But Confucius wouldn't call it love. He'd call it the beginning of a nation's collapse. Because, see, he wasn't some ancient relationship guru or philosopher locked away in a scroll. He understood something deeper. The strength of a society starts at home. And the first crack in a home. It's a man staying silent when he knows something's wrong. You think you've been loving. You think you've been patient. But maybe you've just been scared. Scared to speak up. Scared to lead. Scared to admit that the woman you love lacks discipline. And let's be real here, without discipline, there is no love. Love isn't just about making someone happy. It's not about indulgence. Love is about restraint. It's about sacrifice. It's about serving something greater than the ego. But that's not what men are told to look for. We're told to chase beauty. To fall for curves, for charm, for energy. But Confucius warned us, virtue is not left to stand alone. He who practices it will have neighbors. Meaning, real, virtuous people attract other grounded people. But the undisciplined woman, she's surrounded by chaos. No neighbors. Just a trail of men she's drained. She doesn't give. She demands. She doesn't self-reflect. She blames. And every day you stay with her, you lose a little more of the man you were supposed to become. Her danger isn't her beauty. It's her immunity to consequence. Her allergy to correction. Her hostility to structure. This isn't about hating women. This is about facing hard truths. Some women treat boundaries like attacks. They confuse patience for permission. They don't need a weapon to destroy a man. They just need access. And what's worse, you're not even angry. You're just tired. You're smiling in pictures, dying inside, hoping that somehow, someway, she'll finally see your worth. Confucius believed everything noble starts with the individual's heart. And everything rotten begins when a man lets the world define when he should speak and when he should stay silent. He said, "To see what is right and not do it is want of courage." So let me ask you, when she screamed at you in public and you said nothing, was that love or fear? When she dressed for attention and called it empowerment, and you swallowed your instinct, was that support or surrender? There's a certain kind of woman men need to watch for. Not because she's evil, but because she's untouchable. Not above you, but beyond accountability. Celebrated for her defiance. Rewarded for her disorder. Not because she's right, but because culture is too afraid to correct her. And you think enduring it makes you strong. But Confucius would say no, it just means you've become numb. Because love isn't pain. Love isn't losing yourself. Love isn't tiptoeing through your own house. A lot of men aren't roaring lions anymore. They're walking on eggshells in their own castle. The drip, drip, drip of constant little compromises. That's what rots a man. Not all at once, but slowly. You wonder why your home feels like a courtroom. Why you rehearse every word before you speak. Why your voice shakes around her. Because somewhere along the way, you traded your peace for her comfort. She's not fighting you. She's at war with standards. With calm. With order. And if she's not grounded in any kind of humility or shame, she's not ready for love. Not the kind that lasts. Not the kind that builds. Stop calling dysfunction passion. Stop calling rebellion confidence. Stop calling your own self-abandonment compromise. That's not maturity. That's spiritual surrender. The woman every man should fear isn't the one who cheats. It's the one who believes she's above correction. The one who says you're insecure for having expectations. The one who calls you weak for being vulnerable. The one who twists your standards into attacks and your silence into approval. Because if you don't set the rules, she will. And her rules are simple. She wins, or you're the villain. There's no in between. There's no peace. There's only survival. Confucius never said women were the enemy. He said chaos is. And chaos doesn't always come with horns. Sometimes it comes in heels. The wise man doesn't blame her for being chaotic. He blames himself for expecting serenity from a storm. You can't fix what was never taught to be accountable. And let's be honest, most men today are so starved of softness that they confuse structure for cruelty. But real feminine love, it's discipline, it's restraint, it's a woman who can check herself before life checks her. That's rare. That's beautiful. That's the one you build with. But what do men do instead? They marry queens of disorder and expect to live in a palace. Then wonder why they're always under emotional siege. They confuse being yelled at with being loved hard. They confuse criticism with connection. That's not love. That's trauma. You're used to war, brother. And you call it passion. But Confucius didn't want you loved hard. He wanted you loved right. And modern men, they walk into relationships like royalty with memory loss. You've got the crown, the blood, the legacy, but you've forgotten what you're supposed to protect. Yourself. Confucius taught that a man's first responsibility is to himself. Not in arrogance, but in alignment. In discipline. In clarity. He spoke of 5 things that make up perfect virtue: gravity, generosity of soul, sincerity, earnestness, and kindness. But how can a man be generous when the woman closest to him bleeds him every day and calls it progress? How can he be sincere when he must censor his truth just to avoid another explosion? You weren't built to be an emotional sponge. You were built to be a pillar. But even pillars collapse when they carry too much weight for too long. And let me tell you this, an undisciplined woman will never stop adding weight. She'll never stop testing how much you'll carry. Your burnout is her evidence that you care. Your silence is her permission to rewrite the narrative. Confucius valued ritual, not just for tradition's sake, but because ritual was order made visible. A rhythm of dignity. A way of saying, this is who I am, and this is what I protect. But today, men invite women to the table who flip it over, and then wonder why they're starving. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Some men need these women. Not for love, but for punishment. Because deep down, they think they deserve the pain. That if she's angry, it must mean she cares. No. It just means you're broken inside, and she's the echo. Confucius would call that the life of a small man, a man who stopped growing at the mirror. He looks strong. He sounds wise. But inside, he's scared. Scared to be alone. Scared to be disliked. Scared to set a standard and lose her. And worse, he confuses chaos for depth. You think chaos means she's passionate. No, brother. Chaos just means she lacks discipline. And you lack the courage to say so. Let me be clear, this isn't about controlling women. This is about reclaiming your standards. This is about standing up and saying, I'm not afraid to lose what doesn't respect me. Confucius said, when we see men of worth, we should think of equaling them. When we see men of a contrary character, we should turn inward and examine ourselves. So look around. Look at the men being drained, emasculated, hollowed out day by day. Look at the ones who smile for Instagram but cry in silence. The ones who sleep beside women they don't trust, eat dinner in silence, and call it commitment. No, that's not commitment. That's captivity. A man's downfall isn't a sudden crash, it's erosion. It's every time he ignored the red flag. Every time he bit his tongue when he should have drawn a line. Every time he let her chaos pass for charisma. Until one day, he looks in the mirror and doesn't recognize the man looking back. And here's the thing, deep down, she doesn't even respect you for it. She can't respect a man who doesn't respect himself. You think she's staying because of love. She's staying because she can do anything she wants, and you'll still be there. Confucius believed in roles. Not control. But clarity. He believed in virtue, discipline, righteousness, self-respect. But you've let her turn your clarity into confusion. Your virtue into weakness. Your patience into submission. But it's not too late. You're not broken, you're buried. Beneath years of compromise, silence, and fear. But the man you were born to be, he's still in there. And he's tired of pretending. He's tired of shrinking. Tired of nodding along. Tired of walking on eggshells in his own kingdom. So here's the truth, the most dangerous woman isn't loud. She's lawless. Not in rebellion, but in accountability. She's not a queen. She's a storm. And you're not her partner. You're her shelter. Until one day, she floods it all. You can't save her. You can't fix her. You can't outlove her dysfunction. But you can walk away. You can draw a line. You can say, enough. And when you do, something incredible happens. You find peace again. You find your voice again. You find that ancient part of you, the part Confucius spoke of, the part that seeks truth, not comfort. That's when you rise. That's when you lead. That's when you stop fearing the loss and start honoring the standard. Because in the end, it's not about her. It's about you. Your discipline. Your virtue. Your legacy. Confucius didn't write for cowards. He didn't write for victims. He wrote for men. Men who would protect what's sacred. Men who would choose clarity over comfort. Men who would lead not just their homes, but themselves. So ask yourself, are you that man? Or have you just been surviving in a storm, calling it love, while your crown rusts in the rain? Pick it up, straighten your spine, and never tolerate chaos just because it's dressed in beauty. Because kings don't kneel to storms. They build kingdoms where peace is law. And where no undisciplined woman ever gets to rewrite the rules.